Last week, I customized the Multiverse of Madness Scarlet Witch. It might just be my favorite custom. I'm so proud of what I've done to improve the figure. Check it out if you haven't already. And a few weeks before that, I fixed the animated Carnage figure from the Symbiote Spiderman and Carnage 2-pack. And that one also turned out really awesome as well. I was gonna skip the Symbiote Spiderman figure, since I've already done one that I was quite happy with. But now that it's been a few weeks, I've started thinking about the poor Symbiote Spiderman figure that's trapped in the box. I feel like he deserves a chance to shine too. So today, I'm gonna finally take it out of its packaging. Please be good, please be good, please be good. Okay, it's not bad. The shade of blue is nice. Oh, there's nothing on the back. At least it's not all over the figure like Venom. Alright, let me bring in the custom one I did a long time ago. I think I can do better now. Let's deconstruct this figure. There's an FAQ on the paint and brushes I use in the description box below. The blue kinda makes it look like a skeleton. They look randomly drawn on with no art direction. At least for the Venom figure, I can tell that the squiggly strokes were added so they are visible at any angle. So I edited down to minimal strokes to make the highlights more believable. But with this figure, it looks like they were adding the highlights just for the front view, and front view only. That is why as soon as you turn the figure, most of these lines no longer make sense. But, as bad as this looks, cell shading is not easy to achieve, especially on Symbiote Spider-Man, because in the cartoon, the highlights appear on the edges of the silhouette, no matter which direction the character is facing. That is impossible to achieve in toy form, since these lines aren't dynamic. So today, instead of just copy and pasting what I did last time, I'm going to try and continue to improve my cell shading game. Venom was my first go at it, but I was only removing the extra squiggles. Then I kinda copied what I did with Venom onto the first Symbiote Spider-Man figure with minor adjustments. I then played around with the placement with Miles Morales, and become a bit more confident when I did Spider-Man 2099 and Carnage. Now that I've got a second chance at Symbiote Spider-Man, I think I know the better spots to place the highlights now. So... Hello, this is Ken. I like making things. I like making things out of paper, and I like making things cooler. Especially my figures. Sometimes figures don't look all that screen accurate. All they need is a bit of touch-up here and there to unleash their hidden potential. I also love using everyday tools and materials to recreate iconic scenes from my figures, so they can shine on my display. Subscribe to my channel and join my DIY adventure as I ask myself the same question every week. Can I make it? First, let me remove all the blue highlights. I used acetone on Carnage last time, and I saw some comments saying that I can use alcohol too. So let me try. I got some here. Oi. It does nothing. Did I get the wrong kind? Okay, I'm gonna use acetone again. It is on black, so I'm less worried about staining. I just have to make sure I don't accidentally wipe off the white symbiote symbols. This is much less stressful than doing it on Carnage. With Carnage, I think I ended up staining the torso slightly, and the plastic was slightly affected. Here's what the figure looks like with no blue highlights, but I see the plastic sheen. Since this is a cartoon character, I want the colors to be matte, so I'm going to do a quick layer of black over the entire figure. Acrylic paint dries down matte, so this will get rid of that plastic shine. There were also a few blue spots I couldn't reach. This will cover up those areas too. Ta-da! Look at that! This looks pretty awesome already. But I'm gonna add a layer of protection, a thin coat of matte varnish, to protect it from minor paint rub. The only downside is that the matte varnish still has a bit of shine to it. So one more quick dust of black paint to mattify it again. Alright, now the figure is ready for the blue highlights. So first, let me start with the highlights that looked really good last time. I like the highlights on the jaw. It's just a thin line, not too thick. Otherwise, it'll shorten the face. I also like the highlights I did on the neck. And the little hooks on the back of the head. Okay, this is where I'm going to start changing things up. I kept the highlights quite thin last time. But this time, I want to thicken them and make them stand out even more. I want the highlights to look bolder and less disconnected. But the challenge is to also make sure it doesn't end up looking like a tracksuit. The torso is going to be relatively easy. Just a few more strokes on the neck and the collarbones. And a continuous line down the waist. So, my approach this time is that I'm going to turn the figure to around 45 degrees and paint on the edges of the figure from that perspective. The highlights should end up slightly behind the midpoint on the sides. That way, the highlights will still make sense in most angles, from the front and a bit turned to the sides. A straight line down the legs wouldn't look right. There's gotta be some sort of organic shapes to make it look less like a stripe. Okay, the legs are hard. I want the highlights to kinda go with the shapes of the muscles, but I don't know if I should connect the highlights. This is what I've got. I'm not so sure about it. The strokes seem too thick. Let me refine and clean up the highlights with a bit of black. Unlike the Carnage figure, it is much easier to reshape the designs here. I can easily cover up the blue with the black. I don't like how the blue splits into two on the back of his thigh, so I'm going to condense it a bit. There's this fine line. If it's too thick, it stops looking like highlights, but if it's too thin, then it's not obvious enough. Okay, this side looks better now. Let me replicate it on the other side. I just have to constantly check from my perspective and make sure the highlights are visible at 45 degrees. Alright, time to clean up the lines. You know what? I think this may work. I'm digging this electric design. It kinda looks odd from this angle, but I never display my figure from this angle anyway, so I'm fine with that. Done. Time to add another layer of matte varnish to seal the paint. I like that the highlights are hidden from the front view, and they pop up as soon as I turn the figure. But will this look right in the end? We'll find out. Okay, I went over the blue off screen. I didn't change the design, but I went over all the blue with this neon blue paint. This paint isn't great though. It dries sheer and streaky, so I had to do multiple layers. Alright, let's take a look at the finished figure. Ooh. I like that it doesn't look like I just did two straight lines down the sides. And it doesn't look that bad from the back as well. The neon blue actually looks really good. It is very vibrant. It looks great against the black. Okay, let's do a final test. This is what the figure looks like from the front, and this is what the figure looks like when it's turned to the sides. I like it. Let's bring in my previous Symbiote Spiderman and compare. Ah, the highlights just makes more sense this time. They don't look like randomly placed squiggly lines this time. I wouldn't say this new one here is perfect, but it's definitely an improvement. Yay! Here's the Symbiote family. These three look spectacular together. They all look unique but still have the same cohesive art style. There are certain things I do like about this figure. I actually quite like the cel-shaded Symbiote symbols, and the toe joints are neat too. It was just the random highlights that were bothering me. The new blue highlights look so much more natural. They aren't perfect as they only look good at an angle or from the sides. But I don't think there's a way to make the highlights work from all angles. So this is the best I can do. Maybe I'll figure out a new way to approach this eventually. But as for now, I am very satisfied. My goal today was to make a better version of the Symbiote Spider-Man, and I think I did it. I was worried I would wreck this figure. This new one looks so much better. And best of all, this figure looks so good next to Carnage. The vibrant blue and the red look so good against each other. They should have released these two like this. They look so much more high-end. My animated collection is slowly expanding. But this is a good start. Alright, let's end this with a photo shoot. I love how subtle the blue highlights are, and I love the vibrancy. The neon blue is great, but it did take many layers to achieve that non-streaky finish. Overall, I'm quite happy with the placements of the highlights. Some areas still look a bit odd, but I'm not complaining. As a whole, this figure looks great in most angles. What do you think? Do you like what I've done this time? Do you prefer the figure with or without highlights? I still think my cell shading techniques can improve, but I don't feel as intimidated by it now. It makes me want to do more cell shaded figures. The real challenge is making it look 2D. The issue is, I love making things look more 3D and more realistic. That is why I love doing the MCU characters, because I can make them look more lifelike. Alright, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Give it a like and subscribe to see more content like this. And as always, stay inspired and I'll see you next week. I can make it, so can you.